Alrighty guys, so this is going to be an all-inclusive video of 7 different places where I think you should be putting your money the minute that you get paid. Majority of people can't get past step number 2, but if you follow along and implement these steps, then you could find yourself in a much better financial situation in the future. And let me remind you guys that that's the ultimate purpose of this channel for financial education and personal finance, to put yourself in a much better situation for your financial future and to be able to free up some money so that you can invest. So if you're here for the first time, please do consider subscribing, and while you're at it, please go ahead and smash that like button. It lets me know I'm doing a good job. And without further ado, it's time to get into the video. So the first most important topic that I like to brush past is, why are people making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $100,000 a year still struggling financially? Are we being taxed too much? Is there a massive wealth gap? Or are we just struggling and drowning in debt? In my opinion, what it boils down to is these are topics that are extremely important that were ignored during the most important years of our lives, not being taught in school, and it ultimately boils down to people not understanding how to manage their money. So it turns out that over 40% of Americans would not be able to come up with $400 in the event of an emergency situation. And if you did the numbers on that, you're looking at about 132 million people living in this country that wouldn't be able to uphold a $400 emergency bill in the event that it came out last minute. And hopefully I'm able to provide some value for you guys so that you're not one of the 132 million who cannot afford that $400 emergency bill. So the first thing that I'd like to talk about here is a retirement fund. My ultimate suggestion for money is out of sight, out of mind, and this is going to be one of the greatest ways that you can go ahead and start taking money and adding it to your future without it actually directly impacting you, because you did not receive it in your checking account like someone would traditionally after they've gotten paid. And one of my biggest suggestions here is, if you are working with an employer who's willing to match your contributions, you should be taking full advantage of this and putting in as much as you possibly can, maxing out those accounts so that you can begin to start building wealth in your 401k and your Roth IRA accounts. Do keep in mind that I am not a financial advisor, and with every investment comes risk, so before you go ahead and make any type of decisions, you should consult a financial advisor to make sure that what you're doing is best for your particular situation. The very next thing that I would consider, which is step 2, which is what I mentioned earlier in the video where many people end up failing, is breaking down your income into the places where it needs to go. Now, a lot of people say consolidating all of your money to one bank account is a very wise way to go. But for me, I think it's a little bit different. I think the more bank accounts you have, the better, in regards to splitting it up with the money that you have for savings, the money that you're going to be using for expenses, the money that you're going to be using for investments, and your emergency fund. So when that money comes in, you should have it pre-calculated and dispersed between all of these accounts so that you have it spread out to where you have your money going into your investments, some going into expenses, some going into your savings, and others going into your emergency fund. And of course, when you have it all in one bank account, it can be easily a mistake to overspend. And so I feel like when you have it broken down within these accounts, it'll be easier for you to know what money you can touch and what money is left to stay. Now for number 3, it's going to be checking and taking a look at your necessities. So I'm not talking about wants, but I'm talking more about needs. And needs are going to be things like food, shelter, utilities, things that you have to pay, transportation, healthcare. These are things that you need in order to sustain life. And so these are considered necessities, and you should make sure that you know the difference between your needs and your wants. So tally up all your necessities, see how much that total amount comes to on a monthly basis, and try to stay within your means, and use that number as a reminder just in case you're going a little overboard or you're not spending as much as you think you can. Which is ultimately a good thing, right? And of course, I would not be able to formulate the amount of money on your necessities, because these things change based on a list of factors like how many dependents you have, your kids, your outstanding debts, what it costs you to survive. The area that you live in can also play a big factor. So you should definitely be paying attention to all those things and taking it into account. And of course, let me remind you guys that it shouldn't be an excessive amount. But also do remember that we are talking about the basics here, so make sure that you put down the basics that it takes to survive, not any type of extras that you're including. Number 4 on the list is going to be that emergency fund that I was talking about earlier in step 2 when I was talking about allocating your paycheck. And your emergency fund can be anywhere between 6 and 12 months of your monthly paychecks. And I know this is difficult for many people to achieve, so you can start off slow and build it up along the way. But you do need to keep in mind that you need that safety cushion in the event that something arises, so that you're not financially stressed in the event that you do run into some trouble, because it's super inevitable and that just comes with life. Now, some people say that $500, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 is adequate, but it really all depends on your expenses. And additionally, I personally believe that it should be somewhere between 3 and 6 months at the minimum. And if you're someone who's a little bit more advanced, between 6 and 12 months. But of course, at the end of the day, the more that you can have in your emergency fund, the less financial stress that you'll be enduring and the more comfort you'll have along the way while trying to gain your financial freedom. So number 5 is going to be paying off debt or debt payoff. And this is an extremely important topic that you do not want to be oblivious to. And if you are serious about getting into your financial future and being financially free, then this is something that you're going to want to pay attention to the T. Now, there's 2 different methods that you can use to paying off your debt. One is going to be the avalanche method, and that's going to be starting with your highest interest rates first and paying them down, eventually going in sequential order to your smallest interest rates. Now, if you feel like that's a little too aggressive for you, then there's the opposite method, which is the snowball method, and this is starting with your smallest interest rates and then working your way up to the bigger ones. But either which way, it's going to be good regardless, because you're taking off that debt from your financial load. At the end of the day, as long as you're doing one of them, that is the ultimate goal of this reminder. In my opinion, number 6 is going to be the most enjoyable step out of all of them that I've listed so far, and that's going to be having a 4 to 8 month payroll. All of us are no stranger to 2020, and if you lived in this year, then you know that you should be expecting the unexpected always, and with a 4 to 8 month payroll, more so pushing it up to 12 months in my perspective. But as long as you have a 4 to 8 month payroll, you could be better prepared than someone who didn't have anything at all. Ultimately, it boils down to, if you have a job right now and you're taking it for granted, just keep in mind of all the historic things that have happened that no one really expected, especially if you're an entrepreneur or you're self-employed. Having this 4 to 8 month cushion could really put you in a better situation in the event that something arises where you weren't necessarily predicting or expecting it. And so this is why I say that you should definitely consider holding on to at least 4 to 8 months of your monthly salary in order to pay your bills. And this is not included in your emergency fund. You do gotta understand that there are times where things could go really south, and the best way to be prepared with it is to have some financial reserves. And for the best part of this video, step number 7 is gonna be investing. You can mix up investing in tons of different ways. You've got bonds, stock market, real estate, anything that's going to bring you back money, that's going to make your money work while you don't. That's going to be the wisest thing that you can do ultimately. And even if you did have some debt, as long as it's low interest debt, you could be working on this simultaneously while paying off a little bit of that. You could be investing also, and ultimately you will not be disappointed. So once you finish these 7 steps, that's when you can begin to start splurging, spending some money on traveling, toys, fun, whatever it is that you enjoy doing. But you shouldn't be doing that before you've knocked out these 7 steps, as you should be prioritizing your future and everything that you can do to make it greater at this current moment, because the best time to start was yesterday, and if you didn't start yesterday, then the next best time is today. Alrighty guys, so that's going to be the end of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe while you're at it, and we'll be seeing you guys on the next one. Peace.